Hello friends! Recently I've been getting a lot of requests from people asking for tutorials on how to make their PowerPoints look good. And while there is no easy button to make your PowerPoint presentation visually beautiful, I can give you a few tips and tricks to make it more visually effective. And the biggest factor that I feel is important is page layout. And thoughtful page layout can dramatically enhance the effectiveness of your presentation. And this is because it has the ability to direct your viewers' eyes when it's combined with good typography and a little bit of color theory. But let's just start with page layout for now. So my favorite page layout is a 12-column grid. This is versatile because it can be split in half, into thirds, into quarters. It's a great way to create a layout for your master slides because it's flexible enough to adapt to a variety of content. The number one thing you can do when creating a 12-column grid is to obey your margins. I set up my margins in the master slide. They're right here in red. And so what this means is that when I create my 12 columns, they will only extend from margin to margin, not to the edges of the page. And what happens is that clean border around your page will just provide visual breathing room, and it's an invisible border to ensure that nothing gets cut off. So I'll set up 12 boxes and space them equally. You can do this mathematically, but I just prefer to use the align and distribute tool. Also duplicate. So to duplicate, you're going to select the item or items that you want to repeat, hold down Shift, Option, Command, and then just drag the items and let go. As you can see, it duplicated those three. All right, so I want my 12 columns. I've got 12 evenly sized boxes here. I want it to extend from margin to margin. I'm going to highlight all these and use the arrange tool, align, distribute horizontally. So these are evenly spaced. And next I'm going to add guides. Ooh, I want to duplicate this here. And so what's going on here is to do this, you want to add right click, guides, make sure your guides are on, and add a vertical guide. It'll automatically drop it right in the middle there, but you can drag it anywhere. And again, I can use this duplicate feature, Shift, Option, Command, to drag my guides. Unfortunately, you can only drag one guide at a time. I wish you could select more, but I guess it's the nature of the beast. So if you know how to use masters, I would recommend setting up your guides on the master page just so you don't accidentally drag them when you are working on your presentation pages. But whatever page you're on right now is good. We can roll with it for the purposes of the tutorial. And so what I'm doing now is setting up margins between the 12 columns. And so this will protect text and images from running over or overlapping. And one of my top rules is obey your margins. These evenly spaced areas, even though they will kind of be quote unquote invisible, they help your audience's brain to quickly separate and organize information on the page. And so alignment is key to good page layout. Even if you have to make things smaller, definitely I would opt for that instead of disobeying my margins. So always obey your margins. All right, so I can get rid of those boxes and I've got my grid here. So as you can see, we have 12 columns. We can use the half and half layouts, thirds, fourths, but I find that the biggest value is in uneven distribution. And when I say that, I mean something that maybe takes up, let's do something like this. So it is not evenly distributed. There are things that take up more columns than others. So I'll show you what I mean in a good example. So let's say you have a chart, and most people would put the chart right here in the middle as big as they can, and then they would try and take this type and either put it on the sides or try and shove it down here in the bottom, and that's footer territory, which is never a good place to be. Who reads the footers? Am I right? So let's try an example where we do uneven distribution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my chart, let's say 9 columns wide, and then that leaves me 3 columns. I'm going to use my align tool again for my additional content. Let's make that a little bit smaller here. And so as you can see, I'm going to turn off my guides here. I'll do it up here. As you can see, the chart is plenty big, it's not in the middle, and you've got plenty of room over here for your additional kind of explanatory supplemental content. And so a good tip to keep in mind is that you should always start with the visual. Often, if you start with the words on the left-hand side instead of the right, people will start to read and stop listening to what you're saying. And a good trick is that people cannot listen and read at the same time if the content is different. They'll have to kind of either switch in and out, or they'll have to ignore one to kind of opt for the other. So again, start with the visual and use this is a 9 and 3 breakdown of the 12 column grid to help the graph maintain visual importance, but still going to give enough room for you to put other content. So another trick I use is to kind of create a slide within a slide, and what I refer to as a vertical quote unquote nav bar. And so this is a great solution when you have multiple phases, let's say with detailed findings or multiple pages within each phase. So let's say we are in phase 1, and I've de-emphasized phase 2 and 3 by kind of making the type more subtle against that green background, and I've made this bold to call it out. And another way to create a visual connection is to use color. So let's say that phase 1, I'm going to give it this bright pink color. So we know that it is in phase 1. We know that this content here is relating to that. And then if I were to duplicate that, let's say we've moved on to phase 2. Phase 2, we're going to make, let's say, blue. I'm going to make this bold again. Again, all I'm doing is just emphasizing this type, de-emphasizing the other type, and we're going to make it go into the background. Here we go. So as you can see, if I move from phase 1 to phase 2, we are automatically determining, we understand where we are in the larger journey. So what I've done is I've maintained the primary real estate for the content, the slide within a slide, but I'm still giving people this nav bar to kind of understand where they are in the bigger picture. And so the viewer remains grounded and always understands what phase they are in. So I hope you found this 12-column grid very helpful and you're inspired to use more functional and versatile page layouts in the future.